remember tanto de mi primer hogar, la tierra, el aire, el mar. I recall, me acuerdo details of a place called home, however far I roam from those roads. Me acuerdo. I remember tanto de mi primer hogar, la tierra, el aire, el mar. I recall, me acuerdo details of a place called home, however far I roam from those roads. Me acuerdo. However far I roam, soy tejana. Can never forget my illicit language, persecuted yet fierce like Pancho Villa, my lengua so feared. It was once outlawed in Texas schoolyards and halls, y'all, so ten cuidado. Speak your Spanglish there, they might smack your manos. Like my tia Tina, once upon a time, they tried to keep her in line in El Valle del Rio Grande. She was paddled for her covert Castilian conversations. With every lick, her curses grew. They didn't know what she was saying, but what she meant. I know those cabrones knew, and I remember. My lengua is struggle. Un víbora cut in the mouth of an águila, ripped from its roots that hisses and spits its history from behind fangs, ready to strike at any enemy. My rascuache linguistics mix Selena with Los Sex Pistols, like a dyslexic DJ ready to beady bomb the suburbs, punk ruca style. Como los old school rockeros, see Richie Valens and Freddie Fender didn't care about the rules because it's your happiness that matters most of all. I remember tanto de mi primer hogar, la tierra, el aire, el mar. I recall, me acuerdo details of a place called home, however far I roam from those roads. Me acuerdo. Now, if any of the code switching or any of the language of that first poem confused you, then I'd like to welcome you to the Rio Grande Valley, where language confusion is a daily reality for many of its residents. So I was raised here in a small town called La Feria, along where the southernmost point of the United States, where it touches Mexico, balancing between English and Spanish, balancing on the sharp edges of two cultures. Amid the crazy confluence of Tex and Mex, my worldview was formed. A poor woman of color mourning the loss of her mother tongue, stolen twice. See, I was raised by my grandparents who spoke to me only in Spanish, and I answered them only in English because they believed I would be more successful in this country if I spoke only English. But in reality, the economy of this region demands bilingualism. It always will. So, even though I am fluent in understanding Spanish, when I speak it, my tongue can't always keep up. And so a border snaked its way through my home, between my family members, and across my tongue, and I still find myself struggling to keep balance on its spine. Now, in terms of gender roles, Mexico was always winning culturally in my home, and so other borders went up between me and my brothers. And when I tested those walls or questioned why these gender walls even existed, I was told that I am chocante. Chocante, shocking, startling, strange. Chocante, sin vergüenza, without shame. Chocante, shocking, startling, strange. Abuela called me chocante so often, I thought chocante was my name. See, chocante means unpleasant. It's true, I'm not out to please. Chocar means to collide or to crash violently. Me chocas. Feel a head-on collision at the very sight of me. Canté, I sang. Canto, I sing. Chocante! Too loud, Abuela said. You want way too much attention. Too much for a Mexicana adhering to convention. See, Abuela taught me to be docile, told me girls are born to suffer. To cook and clean, not be obscene, serve your man first at supper. Que chocante. Yes, Abuela is now rolling in her grave. Mujer muy mal hablada, did you not learn to behave? Señorita misbehaving, señorita misspeaking, señorita chocante, what husband will tolerate your shrieking? Cállate, nena cochina, quédate en la cocina, bocona, hocicona, mouth too big for una niña, raunchy, risque, arrastrada, pariah, parrandera. Now, I'm persona non grata, perhaps they should have named me chata. Shut the hell up. See, I'm as subtle as machismo, which is always in my face. Oh, but I'm the one who has the problem. I'm the one who's out of place. Choco, muy chocante. Abuela said it was an omen. Huerca chueca means I'm twisted. Not attractive for a woman. Been called angry because I'm vocal. Yeah, I sure can talk a riot. Been called angry, but I'm happier than when I was afraid and quiet. If you're proud and loud and willful, you're una mujer desgraciada. But a matriarch must first rule herself, y a mí nadie me manda. Chocante, shocking, startling, strange. Chocante sin vergüenza, without shame. Chocante, shocking, startling, strange. Abuela called me chocante so often, well, I believed her. Perhaps she's the one to blame. Now, because I often write and speak about issues of social justice, I consider myself Chicana. I first heard this word when I was in junior high, and I asked my grandmother what it meant, and she reacted in anger. She snapped, Chicanos are troublemakers. See, political activism was dangerous in the days of my grandmother's youth, the days when brown-skinned bodies were beaten, lynched, or disappeared for not understanding their place. So my grandmother wasn't completely incorrect in her assessment. I had been labeled a troublemaker. And I even once received a death threat for daring to write about the femicides, the dead and missing women of Juarez, Mexico. But even though the topics I gravitate towards aren't always safe, I will continue writing because, as the late poet Audre Lorde warns, we can sit in our corners forever while our sisters and ourselves are wasted, while our children are distorted and destroyed, while our earth is poisoned. We can sit mute as bottles, and we will still be no less afraid. So I write about the issues I feel powerless to change. Now, you can walk around feeling powerless and it accomplishes nothing. But if you share your feelings of powerlessness, then you have the opportunity to connect with and mobilize a community. Communities have agency. A community united has power to make change. So although my poems begin as tiny stories about humble people, I'm reminded by the late historian and activist Howard Zinn that it is the job of the artist to transcend, to think outside the boundaries of permissible thought and dare say things that no one else will say. So here is another small story from my life, which I hope transcends. My father unexpectedly pulled the car to the side of the interstate and ordered his 4 children out into the cotton fields. Confused, we set down our video games and flipped off our headphones and followed reluctantly. He said, "You've never picked cotton. You have no idea what it's like. It looks so soft, but it has thorns which prick at the fingers, even through gloves." We mortified teens reached down with sideways glances, embarrassed, plucked tiny clouds while rolling eyes, swallowed a handful of humble, but the real lesson would not be digested until years later. They say the first generation sacrifices for the second generation to achieve, only for the third generation to squander. And these third generation hands, these hands have never picked cotton. These hands have never felt the prick of burrs scrape deep, draw blood. These fruitless hands have never plucked grapes from the vine, are strangers to orange groves and grapefruit rows. These fragile knuckles have never scraped over washboards or scrubbed floors for money, but have been caressed by abuela who did so in my place. These fingers, which have spent more hours pushing buttons than planting, with these fingertips tender as this back, which has never ached in labor, never felt sun-baked flesh stretched beyond endurance. This body may not know, but must never forget. These lazy, delicate hands, these assimilated American-made, these idle devils' playthings play dead, as if incapable of growing, crafting, sculpting a new America with these hands. These legs, which have never hiked foreign jungles, spared by dad's tour of duty, claim all these things I've never done. The softness of this body feels dad's scars etched someplace on the skin of my soul. Are these legs so untested they will be the first generation, not able to support their own weight? Will they buckle only to lay around and lounge? Was that abuelo's goal of coming to this land of third, fourth, fifth generations, where what comes easily goes unesteemed, as these hands cover the ignorantly bored yawn of privilege? These reverent hands grapple to fold together the past and the present like hands folding in prayer. In the tradition of my abuela, bisabuela, tatarabuela, pray to their same God my modern concerns. These feet stand on shoulders, reach down, not to pick cotton, but to pull up the next generation. These words are for you. These hands are ready to park the car at the side of the road and snap the children out of their stupor. They say the first generation sacrifices for the second generation to achieve, only for the third generation to squander. And these third generation hands, these hands which have never picked cotton, these obligated hands are not my own. Now, thank you. No, the late poet and scholar, one of my sheroes, La Gloria Anzaldúa, wrote of our homeland and called it an unnatural boundary. She said it is an open wound. And she also described it as, it is in a state of constant transition. The prohibited and forbidden are its inhabitants. I say, all walls are man-made. Therefore, there is no wall, no matter how old or thick or high or wide, there is no wall which is impenetrable by the human spirit. This last poem is unnamed. The border crisis has a name. Her name is Cristal. The border crisis has a name. Her name is Kiara. The border crisis speaks so quickly, I am inept with my rusty tongue to keep up. The border crisis is named Kelly, and she has held her son Peter all the way from Honduras. The border crisis is 5 years old. It is 8 years old. The border crisis is in its mid-20s. The border crisis is 2 years old and has learned how to walk, but no longer trusts his own legs. The border crisis no longer trusts being outside of a mother's embrace. The border crisis is hungry and needs a shower. It has been 8 days. It has been 20 days. It has been God knows how long since the border crisis has showered. At the Sacred Heart Church, everybody applauds when the border crisis enters. Bienvenidos. We welcome you. Now tell us your name. Overwhelmed by this border crisis, I focus on what is manageable, like 2 small girls in a portable shower stall. These sisters trust so easily, I could wet their weary feet with my tears. Bow down, present my hair as an unworthy washcloth. Unfit am I to even be their Mary Magdalene. No room, many will say. Cast stones and spit. Turn the border crisis away. They asked me to give you a poem, but what you need is a bowl of soup. They asked me to give you a poem, but instead I will fit you for shoes. They asked me to give you a poem, but what you need is a shower and a bed. They asked me to give you a poem, but instead I will comb out your hair and paint your tiny nails. They asked me to give you a poem, but what you need is a safe home. They asked me to give you a poem, but all the talking in the world is not what you need, so instead I will remain silent and listen as you tell me your name. Thank you all.